Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Dr. Navia here. I'm going to be talking to you about med school today, how to get in, how to succeed to get into residency. The next steps, it's almost never ending, but we're going to find tips and tricks to not get burnt out at this stage because we did go through so much about, high school, then undergrad, and now med school. But I'm going to tell you that it's all worth it at the end and give you some tips to become an attending. So it is possible, you can do it. Just follow these few simple tips that I hope can help you, and we'll go from there. So let's start off by where I went to med school. So I went to Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It is a 4-year MD program, and it was a great experience. There are other ways to become a doctor, which I will harp on in future videos, such as a DO program and the Caribbean programs. So we can discuss those in another video. Today I'm going to focus on how to get into a US MD program. So I went to Temple, it was 4 years, I had a great experience. It was very far from home, so you all know that I'm from California. I'm a California girl through and through. So I had to go all the way, brave storms. I think it was Hurricane, I forget the name, Ivan or something in those lines. There was a big hurricane where we had no classes. They did not know what to do. Do not get hurricanes in California. So it was a big cultural adjustment, living in a city, living far away from family. I went to undergrad close to family. So there was that aspect, but thankfully I had great friends, great support from my school, and made it through and made it back to California. So everything is not going to be forever. It's going to be, you're going to be there for 4 years. Try to make the best of it and learn as much as possible. And it will change your perspective in terms of people that have always stayed in California. You're going to get a different perspective on the East Coast. And more perspectives means, more understanding, and I think a better physician at the end of the day. We all need to appreciate different perspectives, different experiences, and this is just another one of them. So that's how I took it when I had to leave, and it was uncomfortable, but I kind of lived in the discomfort, and it helped me, I think, later on in the line as an attending physician and getting into residency. Interviews. This is a really important part of getting into a 4-year MD program. So you've done everything that we listed in the past. You've gotten a great GPA. You've done extracurriculars, including research and volunteering. You have a great MCAT score. But unfortunately, you do need to be a great interviewer to get into med school and to make sure that all those things that you did actually play out in real life. That's what they want to know. That's what they want to see, and what sets you apart, and the real reasons why you want to get into med school. It is highly important to underscore the real reasons why, because yes, almost everyone that applies to med school, loves science. They want to help people. But what is going to make you go above and beyond? Because that is what this profession asks for, in terms of interesting ideas. What do you personally bring to the plate? So that's what I would bring to the interview process. And in addition to underscoring, these underlying reasons through high school and college that brought you into medicine. So that is one part that is highly important that I would underscore. Now you got into med school. Congratulations. Now what do you have to do to succeed in med school? So some top things that I'm going to discuss today are first aid, which is a material that most med schools use for the USMLE steps, which are going to be paramount in med school. That is when most people start taking their step exams, which determines what residency you'll get into, what specialty you'll get into, where you will do all of these things, and at what level. This test is a lot of what goes into med school and preparation. But it's not only about the test scores, it's also about your compassion as a doctor, learning doctoring skills, how to listen, how to give advice. Those are all parts of medical school, which I think are also just as important. Other things that I'm going to talk about, so how to do well on these USMLE exams. Other things that we need to discuss are about the GPAs in med school, how to do well in GPAs, just like in high school and just like in college. And also how to be a great resident. That is the next step. So we also got to think about that and prepare for what's next, which is residency. So let's start off with the first most important part of medical school, which I did not know going into it. Medical school is similar to undergrad in that there are different types of courses that will help you with the USMLE step exams and with the individual curriculum of the medical school. So, what will help you determine to get into a certain residency? Your USMLE score, your GPA, and how you do well on the shelf exams and your rotations third and fourth year. These are some of the basics that you need to do well on to get into the residency of your choice. What is the STEP exam? So, the STEPs are part of the USMLE, which is a certifying exam for you to become a physician in the United States. There are 3 STEP exams, and some exams have multiple parts. But the main one in medical school that is really important, and the first one that comes up, the different steps in the USMLE, is Step 1, which you do take after your first or second year in medical school. What is in the steps? How do you balance it? You're being taught things that your school thinks that it is important to become a doctor, and you also need to overlap what the USMLE thinks is important for you to become a doctor. So these two things can be very different, which makes it confusing. I personally, went into the undergrad and high school mode where I wanted to do well on the school exams. So I did spend a lot of time on doing well on those and kind of neglected the USMLE exam, which is one of the main exams that determines your residency. It's important to do well in both, but to remember that not all schools support USMLE exam style questions, and those need to be done pretty much independently, and you need to make sure that you are studying for the USMLE on top of studying for medical school. So this exam is important. How do you tackle it? In addition to all of the hundreds of books that they require you to read in medical school. The main important book that you need is the First Aid. First Aid will aid you in doing well in the STEP exams. I advise that you get this book before starting medical school and start note-taking, start understanding this book as you go along with your medical school curriculum, which is maybe different than the USMLE curriculum. So I wish that I had done it earlier in my medical school career because it tells you what is going to be tested on nationally, not just at your school. So get First Aid and run with it, take it for all your 4 years. It will be priceless in all your STEP exams. There's different first aids for all of the different STEP exams, and I highly advise it. Other things to help you for this test are doing questions. This test is a computerized test, which is a multiple choice test with questions, and pretty much it gives you a medical scenario, and then gives you options. So do as many as possible. And how can you do these questions? It is called UWorld. I highly recommend that when you get the First Aid book, that you also get a subscription for UWorld, which is a question bank that imitates how the USMLE does Step 1. So getting yourself familiar with how the questions are written, the answer choices, test time-taking skills, things like that are priceless. If you start early, you shouldn't have a problem. So get the First Aid. Try to get the UWorld question bank when you're starting to study for the STEP exam. Other things. So that's kind of the focus of the first 2 years, is to try to get you prepared in terms of the information that you need to take care of patients. So it's going to be in the classroom. It's going to be these exams. It's going to be the Step 1. After that is completed, the next 2 years of medical school are more patient interaction and real life learning. So you're going to be in the hospital and you're going to take these exams called shelf exams, where after you do an internal medicine block and kind of shadow and learn from an internal medicine doctor, you're going to be having a test called a shelf exam to see what you have retained and if you can move on to the next part of your third and fourth year and the next rotation, such as surgery, for example. So these shelf exams are very important. Different than the exams that you took the first and second year, which is more about science, information, and for the STEP exams. So these exams are more of practical questions that you need to answer and to pass to become a competent doctor. And there's also another part of the third and fourth year now that needs to be graded is your performance on the rotation when you're starting to see patients. How are your presentation skills? How are your assessment skills? Are you going to be able to come up with a plan, share it with the patient listens, and it will help the patient. So it's putting all of the learning that you have done from high school, undergrad, and the first years of med school in action. And are you doing a good job of it? Have you absorbed those skills? You can do great on the exams up until this point, but if you're not able to translate that into patient care, you will not do well on the shelf exams and in your future for retaining patients and helping others. So it is when your social skills come into play, your stress management comes into play, your teamwork comes into play, because these are all skills that you need vitally to be a good doctor. So that is what the shelf exams are in the next 2 years. So when you're on these rotations, as a student, you're no longer in the classroom now, you're in the hospital. What do you need to do to succeed and get great grades on these rotations? Get good grades on your shelf. So you definitely need to study after coming home from working in the hospital. This is tough. We were used to studying from pretty much the morning to evening, having your own study schedule in college. And if you didn't have a job, pretty much focusing all your time on that. Now you will be imitating a work-life balance schedule. So do not forget now that you have to practically be involved in the hospital. Do not forget to study, because you will be questioned on your knowledge of the particular topic, whether it be surgery, OBGYN, internal medicine, etc. And how do you do well on the other aspect of the grading system during the third and fourth year, which is your participation, other skills in terms of patient care, etc. I would say as a resident, we do have say in how medical students perform. And as an attending, I definitely see differences between preparation for different medical students and the different grades that need to be assessed for each one. And what will set you apart, what will set you up for success is your enthusiasm. So if you, now that you're part of a team as a medical student, you will have a resident, you will have an attending physician, there will be patients. You are learning. So being enthusiastic in that arena in terms of volunteering to present, volunteering to help the residents, help the attendings, doing presentations, showing that you're retaining information and helping others learn as well in terms of your colleagues and your peers. And there's times where as attendings, we haven't been to med school in a very long time and you can refresh our memories. So are you going to be enthusiastic? Are you going to come up with the ideas yourself and be proactive? Or there's other types of students that, want to go by the book, do not do anything unless asked, are kind of resistant to, helping or change, focusing mainly on just studying for their shelf exams. So at that point, unfortunately or fortunately, we have to do both as physicians. We have to learn while we actually work and help patients. And that is what the third and fourth year rotations are trying to do and why you're graded in that way. So the way that they're seeing if you're learning is a shelf exam. The way that they see that you're being a good part of the healthcare system and actually practically being a good doctor is being graded by your attendings and by your residents and your work that you put in every day to see your patients and how your patients view you too. Many times they do let the attending physician know or residents know, or we can tell when patients feel like they're not being taken care of by med students, or if there's any behavior problems, which are big red flags because they do take a lot of time to change. So be aware of that, and I'm kind of giving you an idea to see how you can prepare later on in terms of shelf exams and grading systems changes now that you're going to be graded on practical knowledge as well and your actions, not just your knowledge. So try to keep those things in mind. It's going to be an amazing time. Medical school is finally when all that hard work is going to come to fruition and you're going to be part of the healthcare team. So keep it up. You're doing great. And if you have any questions, always ask for help. We're always here to help you. We were in your position not too long ago. We know how difficult it is. So be honest to yourself and to your team, and you'll do great and get into the residency of your dreams. So if you like this video, like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, this is Dr. Navia. Bye. So let's talk about GPA. So there's two methods in medical school about how students are graded. There's a pass-fail system, and then there's the typical traditional GPA system. Both are adequate in terms of evaluating students to see if they're ready to start residency and become good doctors. In that matter of way, I think it's highly important to do well in terms of your GPA pass-fail system, because this is separate from your USMLE test, which are in parallel to your exams in the medical school. So you'll have your medical school exams weekly, monthly, typically kind of how your undergraduate courses were. Then you'll have these USMLE step exams, which are yearly and national exams. So there are two things to be studying at the end of the day, and they will not be parallel at some moments in time. You might have not covered all of the materials you wanted completely before you take the USMLE. So, and there are some things that are underscored by the USMLE that are not as underscored in your particular school. So, or there are things in your school that are underscored way more than what is tested on the USMLE. So to clarify this matter, make sure you get first aid. That will tell you what you need to do great for the USMLE. And then for your GPA and scores, it's typical to undergrad and high school where you go to class, listen to your professors, see what's on the test, and study for it.